Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to UX Insiders. For anyone who is attending for the first time, my name is Rachel, and I'm a researcher here at the UX Design Institute. So just to let everybody know, at the UX Design Institute, we offer a range of online courses for people looking to launch their career in UX design. So this UX Insiders is a series of live events that we host. And each event, we are joined by some of the most interesting and creative people in the field of UX. So the idea behind these events really is to give some insight into what it's actually like to work in the UX industry. And we speak to some of the best people in UX right now to get a bit of insight into that. So today we are really, really lucky to be joined by Nick Babbage, who is a principal UX designer at Brain Technologies. So today Nick is going to talk to us about the potential of artificial intelligence in the world of UX and give us some insight into what designers need to get the most out of AI-based tools. So I know everybody's really eager to hear about this, but before we officially begin, I just want to mention that there will be time for questions throughout the event. So I just ask for anybody tuning in, if you would please type your questions into the panel. And if you see a question that you're particularly interested in hearing the answer to, if you could just upvote it, and that means that I'll know it's one that a couple of people are interested in. So Nick, you're very welcome to UX Insiders. We're delighted to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So maybe to kick off, you could just introduce yourself a little bit, maybe tell us a bit about your role as a principal UX designer at Brain Technologies.
Of course, I've worked in product design for 15 years, and recently I worked more on AI-driven projects, and one of them is a brain company behind the project called Natural AI. It's basically a super app that has AI-driven core engine. So it's intended to understand the human behavior and turn intention that the user have into the specific interface. So it has a really interesting idea of turning raw prompt that the user submit query, for example, into the interface. That's how it works. And later in the presentation, in my slides, I will show how it works exactly. But I think you get the general idea of what it is.
Yeah, sounds really interesting, and can't wait to learn a bit more about it. So yeah, I know you have a presentation prepared for us. So you're going to talk to us a bit about the role of AI in product design. So I'll hand over to you whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Let me just share my screen, and I will be ready. Now you should see my screen, I think.
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. Let me start the slideshow. Is it a full screen or not?
Yep, that's great. We can see the full screen there.
Okay. Well, my talk will be about the role of AI in the product design. And before I start the conversation, I want to focus your attention on one important thing. This slide shows the interest for the keyword AI at Google. It's a Google Trends. And you see that it reached 100% early in 2023. It means that we are now living in a perfect moment when the interest for this concept of AI is so huge, and this topic is so important that a lot of people are Googling it. And the question I have, why AI is booming right now? But to answer this question, we need to take a few steps back to the 18th century when Industrial Revolution happened in Europe. The reason why it happened is because business wanted to optimize two things. They wanted to reduce the time required to produce something, and they then want to reduce the amount of money they need to spend for producing it. So basically, the idea of automation back then was the same as we have it right now. So we want to use automation to optimize our production cycle. And back in then, in 18th century, some people like Luditis, they tried to stop progress and break the machines. As you probably know, that they didn't succeed, and now a lot of production is automated. But to be more specific, let's think about the computers. I would say that before AI was a great thing, I mean, before 2020s, I would say, we passed through at least four major milestones. From the personal computer, when it first appeared, to internet, to smartphones, and to ranking algorithms that many social networks are using right now to optimize the content that they show to users. All these technical achievements were intended to allow the people do more in less time. So they are focused on optimizing our efficiency and help us to achieve more by spending less time and money. And when I mentioned the natural AI, I discussed that this app uses the idea of a text prompt that you submit, or just say, you can literally enable a microphone and say what you want. For example, right now you can see, I want to order food for lunch, and the app will render the interface to you. So you don't need to install different apps. The concept is not new. A lot of apps in Eastern Asian region are based on the concept of a super app. But we try to reimagine of how these super apps work and optimize the experience to offer the most easiest way to use for users to access different services. But this is a consumer-driven example. Another interesting example how we can interact with the AI in our everyday life. For example, in writing emails, and AI can act as an assistant. It can help us to write messages and reply based on our context that it understands and our own style that writing of messages. For example, it might learn about us as a person, inherit our style, and understand the context of interaction with other person, and it can generate the response for us. But this is an interesting moment here I want to focus your attention on, is that we need to let the user decide whether they want to send this email or not. So we need to just keep the user in the control every time we introduce the AI into the products that people use. But when it comes to product design, why we gathered here right now, how we can use the AI tools in the product design. I can share my own experience. Before AI and with AI tools, so the time that I need to spend to create a product without AI tools was twice much than with AI tools. So I've as a product creator noticed that I have a huge boost in productivity in different areas. And today I want to share a few areas with you. This slide, I took it from Sequoia Capital, and it shows different areas on how we can apply AI. And we can apply AI as a model layer. Model layer is used to application logic, to business logic, basically. To the application layer is something that we can actually, as a user, access to and get the value as a users. So in terms of our application layer, it's interesting that we can use it for different purposes, like generating different texts, from marketing copy to writing to note-taking. We can generate code using AI tools, generate images, video, 3D, and other assets for different kinds of experience. One of the cool things that I personally believe that will happen in the next decade, I think we will be entering in an era of metaverse experience, even though it's not a big thing right now. But still, a lot of companies like Roblox, they are working actively to make the future version of the metaverse, and a huge part of the assets generated to these virtual experiences will be generated by AI tools, not actual human beings. So this is really fascinating time for us, and I think that this will be a huge thing in the next few years. But right now, if we will think about AI tools, I would say that it's possible to identify two major categories of tools. One of them is text-to-text tool, and another category is text-to-image. Text is what you submit as an input prompt. It's your query to the tool, and image is your output. So these two basic categories of products, first one is text-to-text. Prime example is ChatGPT, what we will discuss today a lot. And text-to-image is visual generators like DALL-E, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion. I also want to share a few excellent examples of how we can use Midjourney for our purposes as designers. But before that, if you don't understand how these tools work, I just want to share a few videos with you to give you a glance of how you can interact with the actual tool. So as you can see right now, we're interacting with the ChatGPT. And the great thing about this tool is it's basically a chatbot that allows you to express your intention in a plain words, and it will generate you the response in a plain text. It's an excellent tool because it's relatively easy to use. Well, it's easy to use, but the trick is like you need to find sometimes right words so the system can understand what exactly you want. But the output, anyone basically can use this tool. So that's why when it first appeared on the market, it created a huge boom effect and wow effect because everyone could access it and play with it. Another tool that we will use today is called Midjourney. This is a tool that we will use for image generation. And the cool thing about this tool is that it can generate different kinds of images for you. And I personally use it to generate visual assets, but I will also show how to use this tool to generate ideas for visual layouts. For example, right now you can see that I submit a prompt, the text string, that says that I need the UI interface of mobile app for food delivery and mention keywords dribble and Behance. If you know, I think you know that this is a popular places where designers post their works, and the Midjourney can generate the layouts for us. But yeah, let's move to the practical examples. And what I want to start with, I want to just describe the general process of how we work. I personally follow this process. It might not be linear, of course, but the general idea is like we start with discovering and ending with validating our design. And here is how these tools can help us with that. So as you can see, we will use ChatGPT for all phases of design process. This makes this tool universal. And we will use Midjourney for the design part of our design process, well, creating visual assets. Well, in terms of discovery, there are a lot of things on how we can use this tool. For example, we can use it for market research, identifying common issues that all products in our category have. And one important thing I want to mention here, the example I share with you right now is just for reference. No need to read it or memorize it. I want to share it with you just in case you need to something tangible. I mean, something that you can rely on when you will work with the tools. But no need to worry about this because you will receive the video recording of that, and no need to memorize or read it right now. You can also use the ChatGPT for identifying common shares that competitors have in the market. And the cool thing is that you can ask follow-up questions because ChatGPT, the tool can track the conversation and keep the context. It can memorize what you asked before when you answer your question. For example, if your previous questions was like, name my competitors in specific niche, and the second question, a follow-up question, will be what market share does each app have? The ChatGPT will understand that this second question is a follow-up question to the previous one. I want to mention one important thing about the tool. As you can notice, it says January 2022. The information, that statistics is dated to this particular date. It's not coincidence because GPT model, it's a language model that is the core of ChatGPT. It's trained on a data from 2021. And training is expensive procedure. That's why the company behind the ChatGPT, OpenAI, they trained this GPT model just a few times. So that's why the ChatGPT can provide really outdated information. And every time you receive this information, I mean, statistic or number of users or other information that can be relevant to specific date, you need to validate it. It's extremely important. Otherwise, you might use outdated information. Well, a few other examples of how you can use the tool. You can use it for market research, like learning about business metrics and KPIs that you need to take into account when building your product. Learning what users like and dislike about existing products in your category, and create more specific design artifacts that anyone can use when design products, like creating user personas for particular type of a product, user journeys, which is extremely important if you want to have a holistic understanding of how you work, how the user will work with your product. And even generate questionnaires for the user interviews. Another thing that you probably notice that ChatGPT tends to write a really long passage of text. And yeah, this might be a bit annoying because most of the time when you ask a simple question, like, for example, the question can be answered in one line of text. The ChatGPT will tend to write you a paragraph of text, and it might be annoying. But again, one cool thing about the tool, you can ask a follow-up question like optimize it. And ChatGPT will write a summary of the previous output because it will understand that you want a shorter version of the text. And yeah, you can use the ChatGPT for ideation too, to write product briefs, which is kind of cool because when the ChatGPT was first arrived in the market, many product owners said that, well, our time is done, our work is done here because we can just rely on the ChatGPT to write product briefs and other important documents that we can use in a design process. But again, every time that you will receive the output that you want to use actually in your design, you need to validate it and optimize it, because the ChatGPT tends to write sometimes rely on outdated information or provide too much information. So you need to spend some time optimizing the output before using it.
Nick, I might just jump in with a question on that, if you don't mind.
Of course, yeah.
It seems from what you're saying almost that this is kind of like a kickoff point or a starting point, but there still needs to, you know, the researcher, the UX designer, whoever it is, still needs to iterate on that and flesh it out and kind of improve on what the ChatGPT has provided. Would that be fair enough? Is that kind of how you work with it in your experience?
Yes, exactly. I actually wanted to discuss it later in my talk, but yes, thank you for asking, because I wanted to mention that ChatGPT brings a lot of value at the beginning of the project when you need to ideate and explore different areas of design before you understand what exactly you want to build and how exactly you want to build it. But when you understand this and when you have a clear picture of what you want to build, ChatGPT will also be helpful in some areas, like writing microcopy for your UI and writing error messages and something like that. But to me, it brings the most value early on in the design process. Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that one.
No problem. Thank you for asking. And yeah, we just discussed the initial phase, discovery. Now let's talk about design. And design is kind of, to me, it's like a mix of two things: UI design, user interface design, and UX writing. And I understand that it's not fair to divide these two areas because all too often UX writing is tied to the actual interface that we design. But I will show the screens. I mean, the result that Midjourney will generate it to us, and you will probably understand why I wanted to make this separation. So here is the output that the tool called Midjourney, the text-to-image generator, generates for us. And on the left side, you can see the prompt, the text string that you submit to the tool so it can generate you the visuals. And here you can see that I use the tool to generate UI screens for food delivery app. It's mobile app, and I also give the reference Figma and provide some keywords like, hey, high quality, 4K, clean UI, just to give Midjourney a reference what I want to see. And one of the things you might notice here is that the tool generates us a lot of gibberish text. I mean, the text that you can see on these examples, it kind of looks like an English text, but it's not. And if you want to use these UI examples, you will definitely need to work on a text copy before actually implementing that design. And that's one of the problem of using the text-to-image tools right now, because they are really bad with writing copy, or sometimes they can be really bad when they create a visual hierarchy of elements. So as you can see, in some areas of these screens that the tool generates for us, some of them are seems like they are broken, and it's not coincidence. It's the way that the tool works. But the situation it's much better when we generate visual assets. And this is kind of my favorite part of working with Midjourney, because when I needed the visual assets before text-to-image tools like Midjourney was available to public audience, I have to go to photo banks to get the visual assets or ask graphic designers to create it for me. But now I can specify the prompt that in this prompt, I can specify the things I want to see, and boom, the tool will generate it to me. For example, I can generate app icon. And the cool thing that sometimes I want to specify exact visual style in which I want to see the icons, and the tool will generate it to me. Like it feels like a magic, actually. The same is true for product images. So you can specify things like kinds of a product you want to see. And one cool thing is that you can specify properties like a background. As you know, as you probably know, it might be hard to just separate the actual image from a dark background or background that has some visual details. But here you can see I explicitly specify that I want to see a burger on a transparent background, and the tool generates it to me. So this feels like a magic, actually. And yeah, it's possible to use the tool to generate even the complex things like mascots. But if you look on these mascots, you probably notice another problem that the tool have right now. Its problem is known as problem with hands and fingers. Midjourney tends to add extra legs, extra fingers to humans and animals. So whenever you generate the body of the person, you will likely have a problem of extra leg or extra finger. So it's kind of a problem that Midjourney have right now. I hope that this problem will overcome this problem in the nearest future, so we will be able to generate human hands properly. But right now, just consider that if you want to generate a human hand, human body with a hand or legs, you will likely have not really good result. Okay, let's move next. UX writing, as I mentioned and showed that the UI that the Midjourney generates have a problem with the text, but it's possible to overcome this problem using again, our favorite tool from this session called ChatGPT. We can use the tool to write labels for functional elements like call to action buttons. We can ask the tool to write error messages, success messages, and the tool can be really good at that. But sometimes you need also to specify to write a short version of the message. For example, if you notice here, I explicitly said that a label should have up to 14 characters. And by naming this restriction, this constraint, I gave the ChatGPT a clear instruction of what I want to have. So if you want to restrict the output, you need to explicitly say what you want to see, so that the ChatGPT will provide it to you. And the cool thing is that it can be used for even longer copy, like content blocks for FAQ sections for your websites. And the great thing is ChatGPT and GPT model is based on publicly available information. It was trained on the publicly available information throughout the internet. So it feels like you're interacting with a summary of a knowledge that our society have in 2022. So whenever you ask questions like frequently asked questions for an online shop that sells mountain bikes, specific category of the websites, it will name you the questions that will likely appear on the websites from this category. This is kind of, again, magical to me. And yeah, you can even use it for promo messages. Like whenever someone from a marketing team asks you to write a copy that you want to use in a promo message, like promo email, you can ask ChatGPT to do that if you don't have access to the dedicated person like UX writer. But again, you still need to optimize this copy. So it's good for your prototype. It's good to use this copy instead of a lorem ipsum, definitely. But when it comes to actual practical cases, like whether you should use it in a final product, it can be tricky because sometimes you need to just have a second thought about that and evaluate how it works based on user testing or interacting with the UX writers who have experience working with a UI copy.
Nick, I might just jump in with a question if you don't mind.
Of course.
And this one might feel a little bit out of rhythm with where we're going, but I know you're getting to it. But lots of questions and comments coming in about, with all these great features and everything that ChatGPT can do and the other tools you've been showing, does this mean that it could replace UX designers, researchers, UX writers? And I just wanted to jump in with that question because I know it's an important one coming through on the channel.
Yeah, of course. And I love to answer that. And later on, I will share the actual statistic for that. So, but now I would say that, well, in short-term perspective, it won't replace actual designers because we still need to have a person who is experienced in particular domain, UI design, UX writing, to evaluate the output and fine-tune it. But by 2030, we will likely see the huge changes in our landscape and the way we design products and build products, because by 2030, the tools, AI tools, will be capable of creating the decent work, and this work will be sometimes even better than the work created by human beings. So, but it doesn't mean that AI will take our job. We will likely be like using AI to optimize our design process and speed up some activities, but it won't take creativity from us. So we need to just be focused on the things like how to specify prompts. So our design process will be like more about prompt engineering, and a prompt is the query that you use to interact with the tools. So we will need to be focused on how we need to articulate our intention and specify things that we want to see, rather than, doing the art and craft of creating something from scratch. I hope it answered your question.
Yeah, no, it does. And I think, earlier today I was playing around with ChatGPT myself and actually asked it, will it replace UX designers? Because I know it's an important question people have. And, its answer as well was no, but it raised kind of, which I thought was interesting, just, important human factors and empathy, which we talk about a lot in UX design, and needing that human element. So yeah, I think that kind of fits with what you're saying, that it's more along the lines of working with AI.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's move next. And when it comes to development, I find it fascinating that some people complain that ChatGPT will replace developers and it's copying from others. Because if you have experience working in development, you know that one of the popular resources that developers use is Stack Overflow. When you basically go to the Stack Overflow when you have a particular task and try to find code sample that will work for your particular task, and you copy that sample and reuse it. So this is kind of fun, because when developers write their code, they also reuse a lot of code from other developers. So yeah, but in terms of more specific examples, I would say that when it comes to coding, ChatGPT can be extremely helpful in some areas like visual research and finding specific color palettes, for example. As you can see, I asked ChatGPT to provide a color palette for a particular category of product, like meditation app. And here is what ChatGPT created for me. So I've just visualized this palette, and it looks kind of okay. It's not great, but it's fine. It can be used for the first iteration for our mocks. And the same is true for font pairing. As you probably know, this is a huge problem when you design interface. You need to find really good fonts, the fonts that will convey right mood and the idea of your app, and they will feed the overall structure of your UI. So I asked the same question to ChatGPT, and it kind of provided me a kind of okay two pairs of fonts I can use. I can imagine that the app can use this font pairing, but it's not perfect, but no any means, of course. What I find is really cool, and it's not coincidence that it's cool. It's like using the ChatGPT for writing code for specific things. Like, for example, here you can see I asked ChatGPT to write Swift code. Swift is a language that iOS developers use when they build apps for iPhone. And I asked ChatGPT to write timer for my app in the Swift code. And the tool wrote the code for me. And actually, this code works. But it's not coincidence, because OpenAI team spent a lot of time fine-tuning and aligning the model, the results that the model provides, using the humans moderators. So they have a huge team of moderators who are voted for the good results. So they evaluate the results that the ChatGPT provides and fine-tune it before they release this ChatGPT tool to mass audience. So it's no coincidence that ChatGPT is really good with coding, because it was trained to write decent code samples. And the last in our list is validating. Validating is a phase when we test our solution. And I find the best using the ChatGPT to write actual scenarios of interaction, of how the user will interact with your product and what they can do about it. I mean, how they can use it in different ways. And yeah, I think that some of the results, some of the use cases, you might find it very generic, and it's true. Some of them are really generic, but they can be helpful during the early stages when you just have a raw prototype, like low fidelity prototype that you want to test with your users, and it will be a moderated session, but you still need to understand how the apps from your category works and what users do or do not in the products. That's all practical examples I have. And now I want to move to the parts where we'll discuss the risk of using AI. And during my talk, I mentioned a few of them already. One of them is relying on outdated information. Outdated information because, as I mentioned before, the GPT model is trained on the data from 2021. So whenever you use it to provide statistic information or time-sensitive information, it's likely will provide you an outdated information, because it uses a snapshot of data from 2021. So you always need to fact check what it provides. And another problem is hallucination. Hallucination is a term that is used by AI professionals that says basically that sometimes the output that the system provides might not be accurate. Why it's happening? It's happening because when you ask something, when you ask ChatGPT something that it doesn't know, it won't tell you that I don't know that. It will try to predict something that will be the most relevant to your question. This behavior is rooted in the way the language models are designed. They always try to offer you the best possible advice, the best possible solution out of the information it has. And when it doesn't have much information, it still tries to be helpful, but it might be really bad for you because it might be providing you inaccurate information. And when you ask questions like, try to imagine like fictionless event, for example, when first human being landed on a Mars, whether the first human beings landed on a Mars in 2023, for example, the first version of the ChatGPT, when they didn't track this behavior, they tried to make up things and say, yeah, the first human beings landed on a Mars in 2035, I guess, based on the information that got from internet. So it's kind of really bad if you use it for business purposes, because you might not want to follow the business advice based on incorrect data. And yeah, the problem with intellectual property is it's also interesting. And you might heard about the famous lawsuit that Getty Images filed from against the Stability AI, the company that is behind the Stable Diffusion, one of the tools that is used to generate images from text. And Stable Diffusion is trained on a data from a photo bank of Getty Images. And the funny thing is that some images that this tool generate, it adds the watermark of a Getty Images. So here is one of them. It's actually proved that the tool was trained on this data. Why the company thinks it's a huge deal? Because the tool work as the Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, and DALL-E, they basically work as they compile different examples of visuals that they find online. So whenever you ask, imagine me a portrait of a dog, for example. It will try to combine various examples of the dogs, find the most relevant dog for you, and generate, based on this particular category of dog, a new example of the dog. So the problem is when you train these models on data from a photo banks, it starts to replicate the examples that posted there, even in the terms of a style, actually, that there are some authors use. So it is really dangerous for photo banks, because photo banks like Get Images, they understand that the next step, when the tools will be really good at what they do, like generating images, the photo banks will be out of the business, because people will use the tools to generate images. They won't pay bucks to photo banks. But photo banks, right now they own the images, so they might stop progress in some areas. So it's really interesting to see what will happen next, whether the Get Images will succeed in that, or they failed. From what I heard, Stability Diffusion denies this request and told that they are really careful about the intellectual property, but the way tools work, they technical things, it's the only way the tool can work in that way. So it's kind of interesting to watch what will happen next and predict. But I will suspect that we'll see some changes in the policy of accessing the photo banks and publicly available information in the next few years. To train AI models, of course.
It's great that you covered that one, actually, Nick, because a couple of questions were coming through about kind of copyright issues and, if the AI is pulling from things that are available on the internet, what issues that raises. But it sounds like from what you're saying that one hasn't quite been ironed out yet, that we're kind of waiting to see what happens around copyright and how that's handled.
Yes, exactly, because we are in a hilarious situation right now. The tools were released on the market. We already have tools, but the policy on how they use the tools, we're still waiting for the government to regulate this area. And depending on what will happen next, we might have might see completely different picture. For example, when the first version of the ChatGPT arrived, it was in November 2022. It was capable of doing so many different things. And you can use ChatGPT. You could use the ChatGPT for potential dangerous things. Like, for example, you can ask ChatGPT on how to do things like how to create a Molotov cocktail. Not explicitly, when you ask the question like that, the tool will say, I am not capable of providing this information. But you can slightly change your prompt, like change the few words here and there, and boom, the tool will provide the information to you. So yeah, we might have I see that the company already working on regulating internally how the tool works, and next step will be the government will regulate the usage of the tools. But still, I don't think that it will have it might slow down the process in some areas, of course, but it won't slow down the progress, because a lot of people understand why the AI is so valuable and what benefits it brings to society. So yeah, The only thing is just to regulate it properly, so it will be used for good, not for harm. But in terms of using for harm, I mentioned one of the problem I want to mention is creating generic solutions, and it's not exactly the harmful thing, but the way AI tools work right now, they like create the new ideas based on a summary of different ideas that they analyzed, I would say. So whenever you, again, ask the tool to visualize the UI for a particular category of products like a food delivery app, like in my example, we have an output. The result that the tool generates is a result of the works generated by different designers from Dribble, from Behance, from Pinterest. So it's kind of a summary. And it's kind of not original idea, if you understand what I mean. So you basically summarize different ideas and create something that you call new, but it's like a combination of many different ideas. And it feels like a very generic solution. The same is true for ChatGPT, because if you will use the ChatGPT text generated by this tool, it will be a bit generic and it's written in a bit scientific language. It's not that I'm saying that you cannot use it, but you need to just give it a human touch. I mean, change it before calling it your work. Otherwise, you will have a very generic solution if you use Midjourney and simply add the text generated by ChatGPT. So yeah, but back to your question that you asked before, will AI take my job? This is kind of interesting question, because people weren't the first who suffered this problem. First one was Tom, who has lost his job because of artificial intelligence. But jokes aside, I have a really good statistic for you, because PricewaterhouseCoopers did a research and they found that, yeah, AI will take a lot of jobs in particular areas like manufacturing, transportation, and storage. Those will be the areas that will suffer a lot from AI, but AI will also create new jobs, especially in sectors like health and scientific and technical and communication. So we will likely see a huge demand for people who work with AI tools. We'll be able to use AI effectively in different processes they follow. Like in health, I think that research in medicine will be like boosting. One of the things that I predict that we will have a lot of new huge scientific progress in the next decade, because we will just use AI for that. And does it mean that design is done and we will have a lot of layoffs? Well, I won't think that we will have a lot of layoffs because of AI in the next few years. Because if you see if you check the examples that I share with you, you will probably think that that the tools are not really good and create a decent output, both in terms of visuals and in terms of a text. You still need a person who will just moderate the output and fine tune it before the people can use it. But by 2030, we will have a lot of completely different picture. And by that time, a lot of assets will be generated by AI, visual assets and the apps. And does it mean that the role of AI designer or developer won't exist any longer? No, of course not. But the way we interact with the tools will be different. I mean, we won't create something ourselves like craftsmen, but more like we will use the AI to do this work, and we will be more like the brain behind the decision of what we want to do. For example, we will specify the prompt that our intention, and evaluate the output that the tool will provide for us. And we just speed up design activities and make things easier for the team. So I will predict that we will have a huge progress in areas like design and development and marketing in the next decade, in this decade actually. So yeah, that's all what I want to share with you today. So I'm glad that you participated and happy to answer your questions.
Thank you so much for that, Nick. It was really, really interesting and really clear. I think definitely as somebody who is learning about this stuff, it was great to have that overview. So thank you. And I think from what you've said, just to kind of finish up on your final point, it seems from what you're saying is more a case that AI will kind of become almost an essential tool for designers rather than replacing them. That it will be
Yes,
something.
yes, exactly. I think that AI will be like your digital assistant, the tool that will help you to make your work faster and spend less time, less money on your activities.
Mhm. And I wonder just, what advice would you have for anyone, right now who's maybe considering a career in UX and might be a little bit nervous because of all the talk around AI, what would you encourage them to do, or what would you say to somebody who might be a little bit worried?
I think that's a perfect moment to join UX. So if you plan to do that, just do it because we are living in a really great time when the new horizon appear, and we need to just play with different kinds of tools and explore different areas that was just impossible to imagine in a few years before that event. So I would advise to just play with different kinds of tools, not necessarily, I mean, tools like Figma, but AI tools, all kinds of tools that the designers and developers use to build the products and understand how they work, have your idea about the current version of the design process. And I think that the great thing is joining the UX right now is that you will bring your own perspective on how the products should be built. And it's great that you can use the AI tools because they will speed up and make your work more efficient. So you will be able to just to go from your idea of what you want to build to implementation much faster and much easier than before.
Yeah. Okay, great. And would you have, for those of us that are kind of just starting on our journey with, AI and ChatGPT, what would you recommend as a first step in starting to explore how we can begin to use those in our design work? Or, where do you start with all of this?
I would say that you need to experiment whenever you have a practical task that you want to complete. You just can try to use that ChatGPT for that. It doesn't mean that you need to expect the ChatGPT to provide a great result, but you need to have a practical experience working with the tool to understand how it fits in your design process. And based on that, from after some period of time, you will learn what task you want to do to use the ChatGPT to do, and what you will want to do yourself. So you will just by doing that, you will feed ChatGPT in your design process.
Great. So a couple of people are just kind of wondering around, kind of the fundamentals of it. How does AI like this kind of learn, or how is it being taught? Yeah, who's doing the teaching, I guess.
Yeah, ChatGPT, I mean, is a tool that is based on a large language model called GPT. And this model, it was trained on a publicly available information from the internet. So they basically use the Wikipedia and different kinds of resources to train this model, information resources, so that it can provide the access to knowledge that our I mean people have had actually in 2021, because training is extremely expensive process. And even a company like OpenAI that has a huge funding, they have had a few training attempts, because every time you train, you spend a lot of millions of dollars. And the trick is that once they train the model has a lot of errors inside it. It might not provide accurate output based on in some particular scenarios. And they use human beings to fine-tune this model. This process is known as alignment. So they hired a team, as far as I know, in some region of the world, who was like intentionally evaluate the output that the model provides in some scenarios and upvoted or downvoted for the output it provides. So by fine-tuning the output. They were able to give the clear signal to model what is considered as a good outcome, it wasn't considered as a bad outcome. So yeah, that's how it works in general.
Okay, great. And so now that it's kind of like loose in the public, when we use it ourselves, I assume that you can give feedback on the usefulness of the output. Is that continuing to train the model? Is that kind of, as people interact with it, is it continuing to learn?
Yeah. I think that one of the cool things is that you cannot say that it 100% it will learn from users, but definitely OpenAI uses information from user behavior to align the model. I mean, not exactly align, but fine tune it. Yeah, and I have a proof for that because the first version of the tool, I mean, ChatGPT, it was prone to provide you to very dangerous output. For example, as I mentioned, how to create Molotov cocktail. But company learned that people will use it, this tool for their purposes, and they restrict the model to provide this kind of output. So yeah, company definitely analyzes user behavior and learns from it. I think this process is semi-automated. So part of that is like you use results of analytics from huge amount of users who use this tool right now. And you also fine-tune the model itself.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I have a question here, just somebody who's wondering what steps you are taking in your own career to kind of future-proof yourself as a designer in this kind of AI world.
I'm not sure that I'm right in that because I'm still trying different ways on how to bulletproof my career. But the approach I'm taking is I'm incorporated the AI tool in my design routine. So whenever I need to just create something, I use the AI tool in different parts of my design process, from UI design to UX writing. I just use AI tools, and might not be like tools like Midjourney. I use other tools. Basically, any new tools that appear in the market, I try to use it to get the sense of it, to understand whether it brings me the value. Right now, I'm playing with the text-to-voice tools, like trying to understand what tools I can use to just emulate human voice. And it's really funny because the first versions of these tools weren't really good. They created a really bad robotic-like sound. But now I'm slowly getting to the point where I can safely replace my own voice with these tools. And this is kind of scary and cool at the same time.
Yeah. So just kind of adopting them into your process.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it kind of raises an important point as well, just around the UX process and how, how important it is that you have knowledge of that process and that you understand it and you follow it, and that AI isn't coming in to replace that you are kind of bringing it in kind of along the process.
I think you need to have a general understanding. Of course, everyone have their own way they prefer to do the work. Someone spend more time on ideation because they love to explore different things before they commit to specific design direction. Other people try to commit to a few design direction and then choose the one that they love the most. So there are a lot of personal preferences in the way we approach design. But I would say that when it comes to the way we use tools, we need to just make the most of our time using optimize our design routine in a way that allow us to just spend more time on creative tasks rather than on routine tasks. So I would say that AI tool won't replace creative person, because creative person have a unique ability to multiply different inputs, like signals that we have when they create a solution. And we need to just spend more time on this kind of work rather than spend time on, for example, pixel perfect some particular areas. I know that pixel perfect design is extremely important, but I'm trying to say that we need to just be more like focused on these breakthrough things rather than on routine operations.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So we're just about to run out of time, but I've time for one last question, if that's okay.
Sure.
Um, so I'm just wondering, from your experience, what do you see as potential challenges for, people who are maybe watching this webinar, and let's say tomorrow they want to start to explore, using AI in their designs. What kind of challenges might they run into, and how can they overcome those, and what would you recommend?
That's an excellent question. Well, the challenge is to track the tools that appear and understand what tools you should and shouldn't use. So just spend your time wisely, and it might be hard because people might have, not right now, I mean, not in the first part of the year, but in the second part of the year, I predict we will have more AI tools that we will use in AI design process. And it might be hard to understand what tools we should invest our time. And I can explain what I mean. In just a few years before the Figma was released, we have a few different tools that we use. Some of us prefer to use Photoshop, others use Sketch, some use InVision. It was what was Wild West of the tools that we can use in design process. I predict that the same will happen when the AI tools will come to the market. I mean, designed specifically for designers, I mean, for design process. And it would be great if, for example, if Figma will incorporate AI in a way that will solve all design problems. But if it won't happen, we will likely have a huge competition between different tools. And as a person who works with the tools, it might be hard to predict what tool you need to just invest your time to learn.
Mm-hmm. So it might be a bit of trial and error initially, but
Yes, yeah.
yeah, it sounds like, from what everything you've said this evening, that just getting started, exploring how you can use it, and resting assured in the knowledge that it will be kind of a tool to work alongside designers.
Yeah, exactly. You need to just create your own approach and how you want to work with the tools. And I think it's really important to do that, to build a habit of using AI tools in your design process.
Yeah. Okay, well, Nick, thank you so much for your time this evening. It's been really, really interesting, and yeah, just a great webinar. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Rachel.
For everybody who's viewing at the moment, I'm just going to share a slide now just on some of our courses that we offer at the UX Design Institute, for those who are interested. But for now, Nick, I'll just say thank you again. And yeah, thanks everybody for attending.
Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for listening, guys.